Okay, so today we're going to talk about outer regional South Australia and how you can apply for a skilled visa there. This has been requested by many people, and just a reminder that South Australia has many different streams that you can apply under. But today we're going to talk specifically about applying under the outer regional South Australia stream. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Traci Chen and I'm the principal lawyer at Mason Chen Law Group. So today we're firstly going to talk about the minimum requirements to apply for an expression of interest. Then we're going to talk about the nomination requirements. However, for this video specifically, I'm talking about the outer regional South Australia and the exemptions that apply to it. And then I'll talk about a couple of case studies, so invitations we got for clients this financial year that applied under this stream. Okay, so first of all, this is still a skilled visa. Whether it's going to be for 491 or 190, the requirements still remain the same. And what I mean by that is before you even lodge anything specific to South Australia, you first need to complete an expression of interest. This expression of interest will later give you the formal invitation to apply for your visa with the Department of Home Affairs. So first of all, you need to make an application for the expression of interest. You need to have a nominated occupation and a full skills assessment in that occupation. And then you need to have the minimum English requirements. Now, as you all know, the minimum English requirements is 6 in each band, which is competent English. However, depending on the competition, you may need higher English. I think as a bare minimum, most of our clients have at least proficient English, which is equivalent to 7 in each band. So for example, if you're an accountant and you're starting your expression of interest form, you fill in your details of your skills assessment, you fill in the details of your English requirements. You can add your family members, whether it be your spouse and your children. Now, to also increase your points, and if you do have a spouse, then your spouse needs to have completed an English test and a skills assessment. If they cannot do this, it is okay, but do bear in mind that you could lose points for this. All right, so I won't harp on too much about the expression of interest because I feel like a lot of people actually know about it. So next, you're trying to apply for a nomination for one of the visas under the outer regional stream. And what's attractive for this is that you don't necessarily need to be working in your nominated occupation. So as mentioned before, if I was applying as an accountant, I don't need to be working as an accountant in outer regional South Australia. So the requirements is that you must be currently living and working in outer regional South Australia. Now there's specific suburbs for it. I'll drop a link below to the postcodes, but some example is like Port Lincoln, where all the tuna is. There's Whyalla. There's Mount Gambier, which is where the Blue Lake is, and it's quite close to Melbourne. Well, it's a few hours away essentially. Port Pirie. Port Augusta. These are kind of the more popular outer regional South Australia suburbs. Places like Gawler and down south, even though it seems far away, they're not considered outer regional, so do be careful of that. So you currently have to be working in regional South Australia. Some people ask me if work from home works. So for example, if you live in Whyalla, but you're working from home for a company based in Adelaide, I don't think that works. I think the entire purpose of this program is to attract more people to regional South Australia to help with the workforce shortages there, and also just to grow outer regional South Australia. I don't know if you guys have been there, but it's pretty regional out there. Like, I think it's developed a lot since, but I haven't been there for, 5-6 years now. But back then we're talking about, towns with a couple of thousand people. You don't have to be working in your field. You could be working as a support worker in an aged care home, which there's a lot of them in regional South Australia, and I know there's a huge shortage of support workers out there. You can be working in one of the hospitality or agriculture businesses out there. South Australia is very well known for, their wineries and their farms. And so employers are always looking for workers out there. It doesn't say whether you need to be working at least part-time or full-time, 20 hours or 40 hours, but probably full-time is preferred. But I'm sure that if you're working out there for 20 hours, it would also be accepted. Now, the requirement says that you have to be working in outer regional South Australia for 12 months before you can apply for 491. And if you've been working in outer regional South Australia for 24 months, you could be nominated for the 190 visa. So when you apply for this, it's going to be a little bit different. You're not applying for direct nomination. You'll be applying for a registration of interest first. So it's kind of like other states. You have to first register your interest. and then you'll be invited to apply for state nomination. And then once that state nomination is accepted, then you'll be able to apply for your visa. So you'll lodge your registration of interest. The form is actually quite extensive, and you're supposed to write a little submission, about 400 words, about how you will be able to contribute to regional South Australia. I've done plenty of these from all different industries and occupations. I've done one for an accountant who's working as a cook in regional South Australia. I've done one for a motor mechanic who's working as a support worker in regional South Australia, and they all got nominated. I'll talk a little bit about their case studies a little bit later. So you firstly lodge a registration of interest. And this is quite funny. I think the invitation time has varied. I think if you have met the requirements 12 months, you should get an invitation within a couple of weeks. There shouldn't be any major issues there. However, we've also lodged prior to the 12 months, and although it's not recommended, we lodged it because our clients' visas were expiring soon. We were actually still invited. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later. But let's just say, for example, you wait the full 12 months and you lodge your registration of interest. Then you'll get your invitation. You will then apply for your state nomination. And then after probably maybe a couple of weeks or maybe up to a month, you'll get your formal invitation to apply for the visa with the Department of Home Affairs. When you apply for the nomination, there is some specific documents that you need to apply for. And I think when you submit your application, you can write a statement of commitment to South Australia. I think it's really important that you demonstrate that you will be committed to South Australia. I think competition for this stream is going to grow because a lot of people are hearing about it, and obviously there is people out there who haven't been able to find a job in their field. So this program is actually very attractive to them. Once you apply for your visa, it could take anywhere between, 5 to 24 months. We've had some that was seriously granted in like 5 months. I do think that they're working pretty quickly for onshore applicants in South Australia. So that's just been my experience. So let's talk about some of the case studies. So for example, I had a client who is an accountant, relocated to regional South Australia and started working as a cook in a very regional pub / hotel in regional South Australia. And this place is an absolute institution. The town is very small itself, but it's busy because I think a lot of truckies stop in that town and before they head on into the city. So I think that's why it's really busy. I think the applicant lived there for like maybe 6 months before we applied. We assisted to draft the documentation and submissions to demonstrate his skills as well as his commitment to regional South Australia. We also submitted it obviously 6 months in, so prior to meeting the 12-month requirement, because his visa was about to expire. And I think there's somewhere on the South Australian website that does actually say if your visa is expiring soon, you are encouraged to apply. Just indicate that to Immigration SA, which is exactly what we did. Then after we submitted the registration of interest, I think we got the invitation to apply for the nomination I think it was under a week, I reckon. And then after that, we applied for the nomination and the nomination came through. And so far, we've already lodged the 491 visa. I think that was only like a month ago. It hasn't been granted yet. We had another client who is a motor mechanic and again, relocated to regional South Australia and started working as a support worker there in one of the aged care homes. Again, we submitted it within the 12 months and they were invited, and we're at the nomination stage, waiting for the nomination to be granted and waiting for the visa invitation to come through. So the requirements do say that you have to be living and working in regional South Australia for 12 months, which is 100% what I recommend applicants to do. So live and work there for 12 months before we apply. However, on exceptional cases like our clients where their visa is about to expire, I think it's possible to lodge registration of interest, before you actually meet those requirements, because South Australia, unlike other states, actually do look at that. They do consider if your visa is expiring, and they can give you an invitation prior to meeting the state requirements. But again, I think it's definitely assessed on a case-by-case basis. And I think for the 2 example of clients that I just gave, I think that they had a great business case. So the cook that was working in regional South Australia, we collected some data that really demonstrated that it's very hard to find cooks and chefs in that region. Like, for example, there's no hospitality schools out there. So what cooks and chefs are going to go work in that regional South Australia hotel? And same with the motor mechanic who's working there as a support worker. I think at the end of the day, there is a huge aging population in regional South Australia. So nursing homes are growing. There's just a demand there. Regional South Australia is a great place to retire, to be honest. It's very quiet and just a great place to live. So as you guys know, we are coming towards the end of the financial year, which is June 30. I think invitations will slow down for all states for all skilled visa because that's just what happens every year. So don't worry. It will open up and there may be some changes here and there, but to be honest, I think South Australia stays relatively consistent. There will be some changes, but I don't think there's any major shock that I've seen over the last few years anyway. However, I do think it's getting pretty competitive. I've heard stories from my clients that it's very hard to even find a place to live in South Australia at the moment, whether it be Adelaide or regional South Australia. I think that's got a lot to do with migrants heading over there to apply for the migration program there. So it is what it is. So if you are thinking about it, I do recommend that you do make that decision to move soon. Anyway, that's all about outer regional South Australia. I hope you found that video helpful. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with people who need it. If you guys have any topics that you want to learn about, please drop it in the comments below and I will do my best to make videos about them. Thank you for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video.